Coletiva de imprensa nos Estados Unidos em frente ao Capitólio nesta terça-feira, 12, parlamentares brasileiros, liderados pelo deputado Eduardo Bolsonaro e o jornalista exilado Paulo Figueiredo, lançaram apelo internacional contra o autoritarismo judicial e perseguição política no Brasil. A delegação, conta com apoio de membros republicanos do Congresso americano, busca ampliar a conscientização sobre problemas da democracia brasileira. O deputado Gustavo Gayer também denunciou.
First of all, thank you, Chris, to give us this opportunity. We are very honored and we want to bring here some light for what is going on in Brazil. My name is Eduardo Bolsonaro. I'm the most voted ever congressman in the history of Brazil, also son of President Bolsonaro and former chairman of the Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committee. I have always warned in my speeches in the Congress about the dangers of my country turning into a Cuba or Venezuela with their concentration camps. Today, unfortunately, I live in my own movie about the Gulag. And for those who think I'm exaggerating, I will cite here few simple names. Felipe Martins, the international advisor to President Bolsonaro, as Jared Kushner was to President Trump. A brilliant young man in his 30s with a promising future, imprisoned by an exception tribunal, accused of a coup d'etat never attempted or planned, and without the hope of minimally fair treatment, as due process and broad defense no longer exists in Brazil. Colonel Câmara, the Bolsonaro security detail, who is now also in jail accused of an imaginary coup d'etat. And like them, veterinarians, gospel singers, sign language interpreters, comedians as Bismarck Fugas, and even a homeless and a person diagnosed with a high degree of autism, all of them imprisoned, accused of a coup d'etat. It's very clear that all this oppression and cruelty is just a step towards the ultimate goal, to imprison my father, the president who dared to put the interests of Brazilians first. My father is now prosecuted and slandered in the most various ways. As in every tyranny, the limit of the ridiculous no longer exists. And he even faces the accusation of having committed the terrible crime of disturbing a whale. That's not a joke. He's criminally charged for passing by a whale on a jet ski. And the most impressionable thing is the complaint was made by Lula da Silva's environmental minister. This is more ridiculous than what Trump is having as charged here in the United States. My father is also accused of attempting a coup d'etat when he was no longer president. The judiciary, appointed by the Communist Party in power, want us to believe that my father waited to leave power and, when he no longer had the armed forces under his command, attempted a coup d'etat with elderly and unarmed women, all of these thousands of kilometers away from Brazil, when my father was in vacations in the United States. Going to the end, they want us to believe, Mr. Chris Smith, that women, elderly ladies, and all kinds of ordinary citizens, unarmed, are a danger to the rule of law. And those violating the rights and fundamental guarantees are the saviors. Ladies and gentlemen, these stories are not something that someone told me. We are living this right now, and with not even a single word from Biden administration, State Department, or any governmental authority from the homeland of democracy, the United States of America. The dozen colleagues that are following me here also will talk about terrifying situations. Brazil, unfortunately, is not a democracy anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eduardo.
First, I'd like to thank you, Congressman, for giving us time and a platform.
Thank you.
To come here today and talk about what's happening in Brazil. This is something that we no longer have in our nation. We no longer have the privilege of saying the truth, saying what we think, and giving our opinion. So to start, I'd like to ask you a simple question. Is Venezuela a democracy or a dictatorship? I believe all of you here today agree with me that Venezuela is not a democracy. It's far from it. It's a dictatorship. But then I have another question. Does Venezuela have a Supreme Court? Does Venezuela have a Ministry of Education? Does Venezuela have Congress? Does Venezuela have public ministry? No. Yes, they have. But they are no longer a democracy. Because all these institutions that are valuable for a democracy have been kidnapped and are served as an instrument of oppression. They are served only as to arrest and oppress people for their opinions. And what we have today in Brazil is exactly the same thing. Our Supreme Court in Brazil does not protect the Constitution anymore. As a matter of fact, they are releasing drug dealers, they are releasing criminal leaders of trafficking, and they're putting in prison congressmen, simple people, for their opinions. The reason why the leader of opposition is not here today, Carlos Jordi, the leader of the opposition in our Congress is not here today because he had his passport seized. He can no longer leave his country to tell the world what's happening in Brazil. Many other congressmen are not here today because they have had their passports seized. There's something called a fishing expedition. Pretty much everyone beside me here today has suffered. We've had our houses invaded by the federal police on a decision of Alexandre de Moraes, trying to fight something against us because we tell the truth, because of our opinions. In Brazil, the most dangerous thing you can do today is tell your opinion, speak your mind. But if you do drug dealing, if you murder people, if you do any other crime, you will be defended actually. So we are here today using this platform that you so gratefully gave us to tell the world that Brazil is no longer a democracy. What is happening in our country can happen in your country as well. Pay attention to our country. There was a poll conducted recently in Brazil to 3,000 people, I believe, asking them if they believe they live in a democracy or if they live in a dictatorship of the judiciary. Believe it or not, half the people answered that we live today under dictatorship of judiciary. Half the population of our country understands that Brazil is no longer a democracy. More than half of the congressmen also believe that, also understand that, but they are afraid to act. And the reason they are afraid to act is because the moment we try to pass a bill, giving back to Congress the leadership or the right to pass bill or to legislate, we immediately suffer intimidation. Phone calls from ministers of the justice harassing and threatening congressmen if they don't do exactly what the Supreme Court says. So I'm here today representing the leader of the opposition, Carlos Jordi, who was not able to be here today, representing Daniel Silveira, a congressman who was also arrested, and many others. Carla Zambelli, who cannot be here today because her passport was seized. This can no longer continue the way it is. And to finish, I would like you to take a look at the faces of all my friends who are here beside me today, these brave men and women. These people now are at risk of the moment we set foot back in Brazil, we can be arrested, we can suffer search and seizure, we can have our lives destroyed. Why? Because of corruption? Because we steal public money? No, because we're fighting for real democracy. Because we don't want to see Brazil becoming a Venezuela if that's not too late. So I would like to thank every congressman and congresswoman who are standing here beside me today for having the courage to come here and commit a crime in Brazil, which is tell the truth. Thank you very much, Congressman.
Thank you.